Hello and welcome. This is a brief overview of the Gigastore calculator. It's one of the tabs on the current version of SE Tools spreadsheet, and it's the first one. The first tab is GS Calc, the second tab is GS Charts. Both of these have to do with the data that you put into this the Gigastore calculator, this first tab. So let me just kind of quickly go through what this entails and how you put data in it. First of all, the reason that we're going through all of this machinations and calculation is really this data right here, the data retention times. This is ultimately the focus, and this really is a customer saying, if I implement this in my environment, what's my data retention time? How long will I be able to keep packet data based on the information we've discussed? So that's where that answer lies. How you use it, the way this is set up, white areas are where you fill in data. So either a name, a label of a location, a customer location, and then in the utilization areas, any whole number between 1 and 100 is acceptable, and then the calculations will come forth. The blue areas are drop down, so the line rate can be 10, 1, or 40, and if you go down to the beyond ports 1 and 2, because the 40 only supports two ports today, then that drops down to 1 or 10. Now we also have some automation built in here. These 4 buttons here, these 6 buttons here are basically macros that allow you to kind of do a little bit of automation. So there's a default setting that fills all 4 of these independent models to show you example data. If you're going to do it manually, you can clear that and type everything in on your own. If you're working for a customer and all of the locations are going to be 1 gig or 10 gig, this enables you to quickly set all those that way. And then these 2 are newer ones. These are well, the 110 max examples. This one uses a highlight to just show you that these are kind of the bleeding edge for each group of our hardware. So, in other words, these that are highlighted, that's about as far as you'd want to push that particular system. And this might be useful if you're having a conversation with a customer who just wants, the minimum that they can get. You kind of, this gives you the ability to show that, and then to kind of reinforce that with, you might want to consider going a step up because you have no headroom, no room for growth. So that's a useful thing there. The 40 gig examples is just that. All 4 models are populated with various numbers at 40 gig rates, just to show you. And obviously we're only going to see the 40 gig in the 40 gig data center model, as well as in the Gigastore Software Edition. Speaking of the Gigastore Software Edition, I mentioned the blue are drop downs. All of the sizes available are listed here. You're going to just drop down, and we only show 1 at a time, so you're just going to drop down and pick whichever size you want to take a look at. So let me go back to the default setting. A couple of things to note here. We also do a packet per second rate calculation. Some customers really get into talking about that, or maybe they have a competitor in that's been talking to them about, well, what's the packet per second rate? So we can give them a pretty accurate calculation here, and you can also turn this off so that it doesn't display at all if you want to see that. Let me scroll down here, and I'm going to show you a few other things that are underneath the Gigastore calculator. This first section I think of as specs. Basically, it runs through all of the hardware versions and says how many ports are available, what are the line speeds that are supported, the write-to-disk max rates, what the rack size is physically, and then whether or not it can be expanded. Also interesting is the number of drives that are there, just a reference point for that, and some limits to be set on the portable. So these white areas that you see, that's what the calculator looks at to see. At some point, I'm not going to show you an answer for a particular hardware model because it exceeds this number, right? So these can be modified. I don't recommend it. These are pretty good guidelines to kind of show you if it doesn't appear. In other words, if you don't see You know, if you see a blank space here, that means this particular unit is not going to handle what you're looking at here, right? So that's kind of helpful. Down below that, we have the defaults. So this is the default values, both names and the numbers in here. So you can change these if you want to resave the file. It will use what's here when you click that default button. Off to the right is an average packet size for each port, and those can be changed if you want to do that calculation. It doesn't affect anything other than that packets per second value that we show up there. It doesn't change anything else. And this is where you turn off that packet per second rate display. If you don't want that to be seen, you can turn it off. The rest down here is the max examples. I don't recommend changing these for both the max and the 40 gig examples are there. And there's also a summary down here of what the data looks like based on what you have imported. And this is really utilized by the Gigastore Charts tab. So let me go over that briefly. This is relatively new. Started this with version 8 of the SE tools. Basically, it's just a way of giving a graphical view of what these different models will look like, right? So the number of days, gigabits per second for each one of the 4 models, GS1 through 4. And then we show, the number of days here, the Gigastore hardware platforms here, and then gigabits per second here. Down below, we have a summary for the software edition, various sizes available as well. So it's just another way of doing it. There's no data to be input here. It's just utilizes that data from the first one. Just to give you some good information and maybe something that might be useful to you in talking to a customer. So that is the Gigastore calculator in the SE Tools version 8.1. Hope this was helpful. Thanks for watching.